Hare Krishna. Hope everyone is doing good. Today we will discuss about the history of a great king, Bharat. So who is this Bharat? Bharat, he is the eldest son of King Rishabhadev. He was a devout theist. When his exalted father retired from material life to seek God alone in the wilderness, he appointed his foremost son, Bharata, to succeed him as king. Accepting his father's order, he began to rule the vast kingdom. Modern India is still named Bharat, but during the time of Bharat's rule, his domain, known as Bharatavarsha, which include all the land between Persia and Southeast Asia. King Bharat was truly a great king. We hear about kings who rule certain countries, but King Bharat was the emperor of the entire world. He was so successful in his leadership. The citizens were so happy to have such a wonderful king. He treated all the people sweetly, just like a father. Bharat Maharaj was a religious man too. He pleased the Lord by worshipping him in different ways. He was destined to live for 1000 times 10,000 years. Can you figure out how long it is? So many zeros, right? We can't even count the number of years he lived. Obviously, he didn't live in our age because Kali Yuga people live only for 100 years. So Bharat Maharaj lived in Treta Yuga, over 1 million year BC. Originally, this Asia earth is known as Ajanabavarsha in the Vedic history. But after King Bharat, it is known as Bharatavarsha. In the womb of Queen Panchajana, King Bharat procreated 5 wonderful sons who were named Sumati, Rashtrabitra, Sudarshana, Avarana, Dhrumaketu. So, with a mind to propitiate and please God, King Bharat performed various sacrifices and ceremonies. Through manifold pious activities carried out during his very long life, King Bharat consciousness became pure and he became free of lust, anger, infatuation, and material attachment. His heart having become clean, his devotion to the Lord of the universe grew every day. The all-attractive Lord of the universe is the highest being, and he manifests himself in 3 ways as Paramatma or Super Soul within the heart of every living being, or as Brahman or the impersonal, all-pervading, totally of life, as Bhagavan or the beautifully dressed and adorned Supreme Being who always resides with unlimited devotees in his external spiritual paradise. According to the good karma, King Bharat enjoyed material pleasures and ruled for a very long time. But when he felt his time was up, he decided to retire from family life. And accordingly, he divided the wealth and domain he had inherited among his 5 different sons. He went to a forest. In the garden of the forest, King Bharat lived alone. He happily gathered flowers, twigs, and tulsi leaves. Water that he needed, he got from the holy rivers running nearby. He dug edible roots and picked delicious fruits to offer to Krishna. He had no material desires, and his heart was full of love for the Lord. He gradually purified himself more and more. He constantly engaged in devotional service and remembered the lotus feet of Krishna. Tears flowed from his eyes so much so that he could not see anything. The hairs of his body stood on end as he became ecstatic. His heart was like a lake filled with the water of love for God. So his life was going like this. But one day he saw a doe near the river. He was sitting down the bank of the river and began chanting his mantras. When his eyes were half opened eyes, he saw a doe coming to the river to drink. Deer are timid creatures, and the doe was nervously looking back and forth as she drank. She was very thirsty and drank deeply of the cool river water. King Bharat noticed that the doe was pregnant. When he was seeing, suddenly a loud roar of a nearby lion terrified the doe. And the doe was, out of very fear, he jumped into the water. The baby deer fell from her womb into the river. Meanwhile, the doe reached the opposite river bank and immediately dropped dead from acute distress and exhaustion. When King Bharat saw the motherless baby deer floating down the river, he felt great compassion. He immediately lifted the baby deer from the water and, like a true friend, he brought the fawn to his ashram hut. Seeing the helpless fawn, King Bharat felt great compassion towards the deer, and he began to feed it grass and protect it from the danger of tigers and other animals. He felt compelled to raise the deer, and becoming affectionate, the king would pet it and even kiss it out of love. He became so absorbed in raising the fawn that he gradually forgot his holy duties and even forgot to meditate on and worship on the Supreme Lord. See, he left his wife, kids, the kingdom, and he came to forest to remember and worship and prepare himself for his death. But a little fawn distracted him from his original goal. But he began to think, oh, what a pity! By destiny, which is a force of God's time factor, this young and helpless fawn has taken shelter of me. I am its only family. The deer is completely trusting in me with full faith. So it is my duty to protect this small little creature, even at the cost of neglecting my own spiritual life. It would be a great fault if, for my own selfish reasons, I did not nurture this poor, helpless creature that has taken shelter with me. A good man will never neglect a helpless being that has sought protection. Even though the deer is disturbing my spiritual life, I realize that a helpless being that has come under my shelter cannot be neglected. That would be a great fault. Even if one is a monk in the renounced, they should feel compassion for suffering living beings. A good man will certainly neglect his own personal interest, however important they may be. Be selflessly, protect one who has taken shelter. Through this association, King Bharat developed an enduring attachment for the young deer, and he would lay with it and play with it, even eat with it. In this way, his purified heart again became bound by the love of the small little deer. And this time to the young, charming deer, the material affections increased. Whenever Bharat went into the forest to collect eatables and food, he would always take the young deer with him out of affection for its playful and charming antics, as well as fear for its safety from wild animals. He became so affectionate that he would play with the deer and sometimes even carry the young fawn on his shoulder. The king felt great happiness in playing with the fawn. Whenever King Bharat engaged in some ritualistic spiritual practice, he would break at intervals to check on the well being of the deer. Seeing that his beloved deer was comfortable, he would bless it by saying, "My dear fawn, may you always be well and happy." Whenever the deer was out of sight, King Bharat would worry. And like a miser who had lost his wealth, he would lament in this manner. Whoa, what a bad thing I did. My beloved fawn is missing and maybe been killed by a hard-hearted hunter. Alas, the poor deer is helpless and I am so unfortunate that I couldn't protect it. The deer had put full trust in me, although I am selfish and cruel. But this deer has faith in me just as a good man forgets the misbehavior of a friend and still maintains his faith in him. Oh, I wonder, will this helpless creature again return? Like this way, he will be so worried. He will think, has it been killed by wild animals? Will it again return and gladden my heart with its playful ways and eating of soft grasses? I fear that it has been eaten by a long tiger or flock of wild boars, or killed by wild dogs devoid of mercy. In the morning, when the sun rises, all auspicious things begin. But not so for me, worried as I am about the welfare of the deer, and now the sun is setting, and still the poor deer has not yet returned. So, like this way, he used to lament. Arriving in this way, the king went outside and seeing the footprints of the deer on the ground, he prized the footprints out of love, saying, "The footprints of the deer, which are soft, beautiful, most auspicious, are imprinted on the surface of this fortunate earth. By following these soft footprints, I can again regain the lost treasure of my life." King Bharat continued speaking like a madman, and seeing the deer-like spots on the full moon, he thought that his deer must have been given shelter by the moon god who is protecting it from lions. After some time, death became the time for his death. Death came searching for the great King Bharat. As Maharaj Bharat lay in the forest dying, the deer sat by his side, looking into his eyes and crying over his dying master. The king's last vision was of his beloved deer, and his last thoughts were, "Who will care for my deer now? What is to become of him? Who will protect him from the lions and tigers?" Because of this final meditation of the king, he was forced to born into the body of a deer in his next life. So, in his next life, King Bharat becomes a deer. Yeah, it is true. The great emperor of the world now had the body of a deer. Can you imagine? After death, a person generally forgets everything that had happened in our past life. But the king received a special benediction in his new life. Remembered all that happened in his life as Bharat Maharaj. He understood why he was now in the body of a deer. He was very sorry for his activities. He thought, "What a fool I am. I have fallen from spiritual life. I gave up my real sons, my beautiful wife, and kingdom to advance my service to the Lord. I was totally engaged in chanting, hearing, worshipping, and remembering Krishna. Due to my foolishness, I became attached again, this time to a deer. Now I am a deer, and I have fallen far from my spiritual practice. Oh, my bad." The king repented in this way, and he again became free from all material things. He did not want to risk getting attached to anyone this time. He left his mother deer and went to a holy ashram in the forest. He remained there, eating only dry leaves and bathing in the holy waters of the ashram. he waited for death to come and ended his life in this body. So now King Bharat in the body of a deer died. The third birth of King Bharat is Jadabharata. After giving up his dear body, Bharat Maharaj took birth in a family of very pure Brahmanas. His father was a very saintly man, always satisfied, very gentle and learned. He is not envious and always engaged in devotional service to the Lord. In this birth, he had 9 brothers and 1 sister. So Bharat Maharaj name in the third birth is Jadabharata. Once again, he could not remember the activities of his past life. He was determined not to make any mistake this time. He knew how important it was to associate with saintly people, and he was very afraid to associate with his relatives and friends who were not devotees. He was afraid he might fall down from his spiritual path again. To avoid others, he pretended to be dumb, deaf, and stupid. That way, no one would talk to him and he would be left alone. But in his mind, he was always thinking of Krishna and chanting his glories. Jadabharata's father tried his best to instruct the boy properly, but Jadabharata acted just like a fool before his father, doing the opposite of whatever was taught to him. His father tried to teach him to wash his hands after going to the bathroom, but Jadabharata would wash his hands before instead. His father tried for 4 months to teach him the Gayatri mantra, but the boy just could not do it. It seemed that Jadabharat was not bright enough to learn a thing. After some time, Jadabharat's loving father died. Unfortunately, his brothers were not so loving. They did not understand that Jadabharat was a highly exalted soul. They treated him cruelly and called him names. But he accepted this without complaining. He would do whatever someone wanted him to do. He begged for whatever food he could get and was satisfied, even it was a rotten, tasteless, or only a tiny amount. The only clothing he wore was a dirty loincloth. He never bothered to cover his body in the rain or winter. His brothers would make him work in the fields to earn his foods. They would feed him broken rice, the chaff of rice, worm-eaten grains, and burnt grains that they had struck to the pot. Jadabharat accepted everything. He did not get angry at his hard-hearted brother. One time, the leader of a band of thieves desired to have a son. To do this, he had to offer a dull man, who was considered no better than an animal, as a sacrifice to goddess Kali. So Kali would drink his blood as a liquor and, being satisfied, would grant the leader the benediction of a son. The leader of dacoits had already captured a man animal for sacrifice, but he had escaped. The leader ordered his followers to find the man animal, and they scattered in all directions. Searching throughout the night, they couldn't find him nowhere. Towards morning, they stumbled upon Jadabharat sitting in a field of grain, guarding it against deer and wild boars. The dacoit thought he was just the sort of person they needed for the sacrifice. They just seized him, bound him very tightly with ropes, and carried him away like a prisoner to the temple of goddess Kali. The band of thieves prepared Jadabharat for slaughter. They dressed him in new clothes, ornamented him with animal-like ornaments, smeared his body with scented oil, and decorated him with tilak and garlands. They feast, and then brought him before goddess Kali. Before it was time to kill him, they offered the goddess incense, lamps, garlands, grains, fruits, and flowers. They sang songs and prayers, playing drums and bugles. Jadabharat was then led to the altar and seated before the deity of Kali. One of the thieves readied himself to offer the blood of Jadabharat. He picked up a fearsome, sharp sword and chanted a mantra of Bhadrakali over it. Raising it over his head, he prepared to plunge it into the body of Jadabharat, who was the best friend of all living entities. Goddess Kali witnessed all this. She could understand that this was a great devotee of Lord Sri Krishna. These sinful rogues were about to kill him, and she could not bear this. All of a sudden, the deity form burst into pieces, and the real goddess Kali sprang from it. Her body burned with a fierce, brilliant effulgence. Her reddish eyes glowed as she flashed her eyes and showed her fang-like teeth. It appeared that she would destroy the entire creation as she leaped violently from the altar. Seizing the sword from the priest, she brutally cut off the heads of all the thieves and dacoits. Along with her associates, other fearful witches and demons, the goddess began to drink the hot blood that flowed from the necks of the beheaded rogues. They drank it like liquor and became intoxicated. Kali and the witches sang loudly and danced like savages. The dacoits had themselves become the offering to Goddess Kali. Jadabharat's life was spared by the goddess herself. The dacoits had committed a grave offense against a great person. That is why they had to suffer such severe punishment. As for Jadabharat, he went on as before, acting like a deaf and stupid man. Sometime after this, a king called Rahugana was traveling by on a palanquin. The palanquin carriers needed another carrier, and by chance they came upon Jadabharat. He looked very strong and muscular and was quite young. One doesn't need to be very intelligent to carry a heavy load, isn't it? So they thought he would just do fine. They were wrong about that. King Rahugana found himself getting a very bumpy ride. Jadabharat would go about 3 feet and stop to make sure he was not going to step on any ants. He could not keep up with the other carriers. This wobbly, shaking palanquin irritated the king. "What is wrong with you, man? Why are you carrying this palanquin so unevenly? Do it properly," he commanded. The other carriers became frightened at the punishment, and they want to face the punishment because of Jadabharat. So they defended themselves by saying, "O king, we are carrying your palanquin faithfully, just as we always have. This new man, he can't walk fast. We can't carry you with him helping like this." The king understood that it was Jadabharat's fault that the palanquin was shaking so. He spoke sarcastically to Jadabharat, "My poor man, you must be tired from carrying the palanquin so long, all by yourself, isn't it? You are such an old and weak man. This must be difficult for one for so thin. Won't the other men cooperate with you?" Jadabharat heard this criticism, but it did not bother him. He knew that he was a spiritual being, not a strong, fat, thin, or weak body. He said nothing and carried the palanquin as before. When the king's bumpy ride continued, king became very angry and said, "You foolish rascal! Are you simply walking dead man with had no sense? Don't you know that I am your master? You cannot ignore me and disobey my order. For that I will punish you. Maybe then you will come to your sense and do the right thing." Jadabharat just smiled and spoke gently to the king. "Your sarcastic words are certainly true. You say that I am not strong or stout. That is true. The spirit soul is neither strong nor weak, stout nor thin. You say that I am not even carrying the palanquin. That is also true. My body carries your palanquin, but I am not the body. I am the spirit soul. Fatness, thinness, hunger, thirst, fear, sleep, anger, and desires for material happiness are all felt by people who think they are the body. I am free from that thought, so I am neither fat nor skinny nor anything else you said. You say that you are the master and I am your servant. These positions are temporary. Today you are the king and I am your servant, but tomorrow this may change. You may become my servant and I become your master. You think that by punishing me I will come to my senses? But although I live like a deaf, dumb, and dull man, I am actually self realized. What good punishment, what good or what bad will your punishment do to me? Jadabharat tolerated the king's insult and responded by speaking transcendental knowledge. He never thought of himself as a great devotee. Since carrying the palanquin was now his duty, he humbly continued to carry it as before. But King Rahugana, who was listening to this, realized that Jadabharat was right. He no longer thought of himself as a great king. He quickly got down from his palanquin and fell flat on the ground, placing his head upon the feet of Jadabharat. He prayed that he might be excused for his insult. The king went on to ask Jadabharat many questions concerning spiritual life, and Jadabharat patiently explained the difference between the body and soul. He explained how people are suffering in the material world although they had try hard to enjoy. Men search uselessly for material happiness and thus forget all about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king heard much more from Jadabharat and after listening intently understood the true nature of things. He begged pardon from Jadabharat for his offense. Of course, Jadabharat, being very kind-hearted, forgot all about the insults and does not hesitate to forgive him. After this, the self-realized Jadabharat began to wander all over the earth just as before. He was successful in perfecting his life in this birth and returned to the spiritual world. Haribol, dear devotees, we saw about the history of Bharat Maharaj. So in his first birth, he was the son of Rishabhadev and ruled the earth. By the affection with the dove, he became dear in his next life because he forgot to do his duty and service to God. What is his goal of life? He forgot in that life. But as a deer, he did not forget. He don't want to do the same mistake again which he did in the previous birth. So he was staying with the sages and waiting for the death. In the next birth as Jadabharat, he was so cautious that he don't want to lose the wonderful, amazing opportunity to give birth as a human being. He want to use that chance to go back to Godhead, to go back to Krishna. So he very carefully, cautiously avoided the association of non-devotees, and he was remembering, thinking, chanting the glories of Krishna in his mind all the time, and he succeeded in this life as Jadabharata. Thank you everyone for listening to the history of Bharat Maharaj. I will come up with another wonderful Bhagavatam Katha. Hari Bol. Thank you.